thank you everybody for joining our call today. We're going to be going over a couple different topics. Most importantly, how to sell VMware's Workspace ONE solution and product in the channel with AppSmart. We've got some great panelists with us today that we're going to be introducing here in a second. So again, thank you for joining. So AppSmart has brought to the table some very great resources for you today. One of those is Al Irizarry with VMware. He's Senior Manager for End User Computing. Al, thank you for joining us, sir. I have myself on the line with you too. Thanks, Al. My name is Nick Collins. I'm with AppSmart. I'm the National Channel Manager for the West Coast. I've also brought my mustache with me as well, who's doing me joining. So what we're going to be going over today, I think we've done some promotions, and what we're going to be speaking to is an introduction into VMware's Workspace ONE solution and product. We're also going to be talking about a real-life story with one of our top partners, IQ Wired, going over from A to Z, the qualification and entire sales process. We're going to have Al, who's a technical resource with VMware, go over the actual Workspace ONE solution and even get into an actual demo for you and some detail from a technical point of view. We'll cover how to sell it. We'll rely on our partners to explain to you what that process was like, working with their customer, and how best to move forward with a VMware solution. And additionally, we'll go over at the end of the call some next steps. We're going to be providing you with some VMware resources and a link so that you can get to some of the collateral, as well as a question and answer process at the end of the call. So we're going to be jumping into a process where we worked with our partner, IQ Wired, and one of their customers to present a full, complete VMware Workspace ONE solution for their endpoint, user endpoint management, as well as mobile device management. I want to introduce you to Kelly Forsyth with IQ Wired. She's the Vice President of Sales, as well as Jamie Yeomans at IQ Wired. She's the Enterprise Sales Director. Kelly, if you could give us a little bit of a background on IQ Wired real quickly before we begin, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Nick, so great to see you and your mustache. Thanks for having us today. IQ Wired is a women-owned, women-led boutique master. We are out of Denver, Colorado. We've been here since 2003. Of course, we're able to work nationally, globally. And what we've found over the last number of years is that our partners, our customers are expecting us to do more and continue to go both deep and wide in those conversations. And it's been really great to be able to partner with our alliance partner in AppSmart and have access to things like VMware for our customers as we do assist with more than just traditional services. So thank you for providing that access and for some great experiences with VMware thus far.
Absolutely. Thanks for jumping in there, Kelly. And then we also have Jamie Yeomans, who we worked in detail with her on this opportunity. And so we'll be getting into somewhat of a question and answer interview with Jamie on the process. And she's going to give you guys some insight into how to qualify, how to understand what's a good fit for a VMware Workspace ONE solution. So I guess we'll go ahead and jump right into it. But Jamie, if you could give us a quick background on yourself, and then we'll get right into the opportunity.
Yeah, hi, Jamie Yeomans here. I've been with IQ Wired for about 3.5 years, but I've been in the space since 2002. Was actually at CenturyLink for 9 years and a CLEC before that. So love the experience at IQ Wired and being on the channel side, because not single threaded to just one carrier's portfolio, but just really everything that's out there. Like Kelly said, we go deep and wide and have some really fun conversations with our customers, like the VMware Workspace. So.
Perfect. Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate that. So let's dive right in. Let's get to the meat of the presentation here. First off, IQ Wired did an unbelievable, excellent job qualifying this opportunity, bringing it to the table, and working it from A to Z. So, Jamie, I really want to hear from you, for the audience, early on in your qualification process. What helped your team identify this opportunity for a user endpoint management or mobile device management fit in general?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that I really want to preface on all of this is that I am not a highly technical person. So definitely a key takeaway of selling a service like this is that you as an individual don't have to be highly technical because you have the resources working with VMware and they're going to bring in. So uncovering the opportunity was just a discussion with the customer. So I've been engaged with them for a little while. They are a multi-location oil and gas company. So they have about 18 to 20 regional offices and their headquarters is obviously in Texas. And I knew that they had cell phones for their company as well as iPads, laptops, things like that. And so obviously with the inception of COVID, their headquarters moved to a distributed workforce. And the conversation, I asked them, like, you have a lot of assets in your environment and, you only have 4 people on your IT team. How are you guys managing all of that? And what was interesting is my contact actually giggled a little bit in the sense that he was like, well, we're kind of doing a good job until COVID. And then they realized that there were some serious gaps in their solution sets and that it was pretty antiquated and bolted together and absolutely not efficient. So it was really just asking the question initially of, you have all this stuff, right? Technical term stuff out there, how are you managing it? And that was really just the door opening of it.
That's great. And that's perfect because I think that helps the audience understand that you don't have to be technical to be able to sell what is a very dynamic and complex solution with VMware. Thank you, Jamie. So in light of the fact that you were able to discern the stuff out in the field, how are you able to take, that process with your customer and guide that to an AppSmart introduction? Because there is a transition process there. Could you help us understand how you transition that to an appointment?
Yeah, so we had that initial conversation. It was actually pretty short. It was a tail end of something else that we were actually talking about. So we set up an internal dialogue with them and it was only about 30 minutes. And that dialogue was really just understanding more of their environment. And if they were to look at a managed solution for UAM, MDM, and all of that, what would it look like? What would be their needs list, their want list, and how does that fit into budget? And so the customer shared with us that they would want to manage device settings, OS updates, configurations, software updates, and it would be really critical that it would, it doesn't matter if it's on-prem, off-prem, or in the cloud. And they also had a number of different, operating systems, Android, Apple, Windows desktops. They even still had traditional desktops for their engineering team. And then he had, some hit things of, it would be great just to have an inventory of all of the devices that are out there, let alone really manage it efficiently. So we had that internal talk, actually spoke with my engineer here at IQ Wired, Rob, a little bit about the opportunity. And he had said, I think AppSmart and their VMware solution could be a really great fit for them. And they're also already a VMware shop. So they use VMware Horizon. So it was a really logical flow to be able to move them into another VMware solution.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that you'll find that a lot of businesses out there have some sort of VMware solution or product within their data infrastructure. Just keep that in mind too. So that's a pretty good idea of how you were able to bring it to an appointment, create the value, and then transition that into an AppSmart conversation. At the same time, I think what's really desired out there in the market and the channel right now is a good way to uncover these opportunities and a best practice in that sense. So what do you feel from your experience now is the best way to uncover an endpoint opportunity through mobile device management? Is there a best practice that you guys follow?
I wouldn't say that it's a best practice, but again, to Kelly's point, in our ownership of our accounts, we go deep and wide. So, we have a lot of revenue with this customer and we're entrenched at many different levels. So that I would say is probably the best practice, but ultimately that comes down to just asking every question. So whether it's endpoint device management, or what are you doing with Microsoft today, or what are you doing with security today? There's a lot of gaps out there. It's just really not looking at speeds and feeds anymore, because that stuff's just not fun. It's looking at what's really going on in the industry and the challenges that they're having, and then asking questions around that. And it's not It's not a sales pitch. It's not a, hey, I have this great service. I have this amazing support model. You're going to love this. You're going to want this. It's, from what I understand about your environment, you have, 300 devices, and that's got to be challenging. Is it? And would you want to hear about some of the new solutions on the market that are out there, and, what some of our other customers are actually taking a look at? And it's really more of a solution, a consultation, right? It's not selling anything out of the gate. It's being a partner with them, and the partnership is the most important part to IQ Wired.
Great feedback. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here, Jamie.
Awesome.
You've been in the industry for quite a while, and you are starting to merge over into selling software. What was that transition like for you from selling, let's just say, other solutions in the telco industry to now getting into solutions like VMware? What was it difficult for you? How did you do that? Could you share really quickly with the audience that transition for yourself?
Boy, I would love to hear Kelly's opinion of my transition on this. So I would say, for me, it was something that was very important. Having the telco background that I had, that was a very easy discussion. And when I started with IQ Wired, it was very important for me to push myself out of my comfort zone. And pushing myself out of my comfort zone meant I had to ask other types of questions. I had to discover new types of technologies that were out there. And I took a lot of self-vetting. So when a solution would come up, or if I brought up security, which we know goes super wide, like that's just a really general, broad statement, understanding, well, what can we do? How do we do it? And then finding the right partners. And I would always talk to the partners and be like, talk to me about this before in front of the customer so I don't look like an idiot. Like, what is the service? What are we selling? What does it do? Why is it important? So I could be in lockstep with, the organization that we bring in. And that was really important. And I don't know anything about, this VMware solution. And I was on the demo and I learned a lot and it looked great. But the technical details behind the background, I still don't have to be, 100% into those. But for me, it was asking a lot of questions. And I think I started with security. I've done some SCCM stuff. I've done some Oracle database management. Obviously this workspace, and actually have a couple of other software opportunities out there as well. So, and I think AppSmart is interesting in its approach with its diversity and the partnership. So if I can learn from VMware and your team, it's only going to help me feel more confident in my approach with more customers that I work with.
Kelly, would you have anything to add to that? That was perfect. That was perfect.
I mean, she's perfect, right? It's awesome. I think even to kind of take a step back, having those conversations and wanting to learn, that's part of it. And it's great for all of us to do that because everything is changing at such a rapid pace and people are expecting more. I think that's the biggest part to remember, is that if we're doing the right things on traditional services or whatever we might have helped our customers and our partners on previously, we've kind of earned the right to continue to have conversations and have compelling conversations and to understand what's happening in their environment that's ever changing and so fast paced right now. They're almost seeking more from us. They want to have those conversations. They want to know what we know, not what they already know. They're looking for what's next and for an understanding and for that person to grab them by the arm and help guide. So it doesn't mean you have to be the expert, as Jamie said. Just be available to have conversations and ask. Be a 4-year-old. Why? What's going on? How do you feel? And I mean, that's what we're doing in a lot of cases. And again, because we did the right things and had been there for, the non-sexy, less, more traditional type services, we get to have the fun conversations, as Jamie said, and help grow and get those gifts that keep giving, which are the software and application type services. So it's been a wonderful.
Yeah, I think what I take away from that is to be curious. I think that's a great point. Be curious in front of your customers, and things will unveil. Is it fair to say, and I think everyone is talking about COVID, right? I mean, it's a prevalent conversation topic. Is it fair to say that VMware is a pretty good fit for a large majority of businesses, from relatively small to mid-market to enterprise? Do you feel that way, Jamie, after our experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually, in my client portfolio, I think probably at least 90% of them, if not all of them, are actively using VMware today. Which is also very exciting because now having gone through this experience with you, you can bet I'm going to go back to those customers and say, hey, you already have VMware in your environment. Have you looked at this service as well? And kind of just bring up that additional dialogue, which I think is huge, right? Because VMware's name is just, it's known. Everybody knows their name. They're entrenched in, everything from medium to large business. And so again, that's an easy conversation to have with a customer. You already have this. Like, have you actually heard about this or explored it? And would you be interested? And to have direct access to the VMware team, that's a game changer, right? It's not just it's going to be my engineer and then this other third party, but we're actually going to have VMware resources together to help move that forward, which I think is awesome.
Right. Yeah, I agree. So last question, and I'll let you guys off the hook here. Overall, through this experience, you've closed a lot of business, right? And now, as you're getting into SaaS, you're probably looking at comparing the different revenues, efforts put into the process. So overall, how do you feel a SaaS revenue opportunity like this one compares to, in terms of effort to put in, pre-sales, post-sales, how do you think the revenue compares to what you may have worked on previously?
I would add revenue, but I would also add time. So anybody that's installing circuits, like not only going through the pricing exercise and getting the contracts and then provisioning and then installation, you might start getting paid on that 6 months later. So this whole process, I think, Nick, from us, from start to finish will be maybe 3 weeks from the time we actually got you and VMware in front of the customer. They'll be able to sign a contract, and I actually think you guys can install within 30 days, billing commences. So as far as work on the front end to getting paid out quicker on the back end, that's enormously huge and very exciting, right? Because I want to work smarter, not necessarily harder. Love work-life balance. And I just think it's a great opportunity, those types of conversations, because they're going to go quicker. They're going to move faster, bringing in the right team. And you guys did a great job, right? We had the intro call with the customer. We got on a demo. They started the test drive. I feel like 4 days later, Al, that's on this call, was actually working with the customer yesterday. We already have the quote out to them. We're going through a couple of red lines. I mean, it was just very efficient sales process that just moved a lot quicker than the back end other, headache stuff for sure. So I am all for it, Nick, all for it.
I love it. Okay, great. Well, thank you. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Kelly. We appreciate the insight very much and the partnership, and this process has been very enjoyable. So thank you for the feedback. I'm sure everyone appreciates that. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide.
So I really appreciate you and your mustache and the AppSmart team of the invitation, and obviously highly appreciate the work and effort from Jamie and Kelly. Really some exciting stuff. And as they were mentioning, I really wanted to point out a couple things that we're going to talk about today. In fact, I'm going to go ahead, if you can go to the next slide. I'm going to talk about the intelligence-driven digital workspace and what VMware solutions are to be able to answer a lot of different challenges in the market. And I want to start with a very busy slide, because when we say security, when Jimmy mentioned that, our customers look at security in multiple facets, multiple ways. And immediately, if you start kind of digging in and you take your magnifying glass here and you see all the different solutions all around different sides of the house for security, this is what's in front of all of your customer, all your IT administrations. You personally probably, or within your organizations, are faced with this challenge on a daily basis. And what's really happening is, with so many different types of solutions and access to various endpoints, user management, messaging security, web security, risk and compliance. Next slide. If you really take a look at that, what's really what is causing, not only is it opening up security impactful situations and issues within the organization, and even more now present with the current situation with a global pandemic, we're having a lot of concerns around not only employee experience, but now even more so remote working experience and the ability to stay productive. We've all faced it. Access to applications, put in an IT ticket, I don't know where to go. All of a sudden I have this new VPN and it's just too cumbersome. When I connect to VPN, some things don't work. And so I disconnect and I'm accessing corporate information in an insecure fashion. Next slide. So as we talk about this, it's really time to improve the experience without sacrificing security. So, you know, that's a really big statement. When it really comes down to it, VMware Workspace ONE is a solution that VMware, the end user computing division of VMware, because obviously when you say VMware, it's like the bar at Cheers, right? Everybody knows your name. You're finding that a lot of different organizations use VMware in a lot of different ways, whether it's virtualized servers, software-defined data center, all the way down to the endpoint. And the real strategy and vision of VMware is really creating a unified ecosystem and also a unified workspace, the ability to the end user to be able to access everything they need, but in a very consumer simple fashion. This is our moniker, a consumer simple but enterprise secure ability to create that digital workspace. So as companies go through the digital transformation, they're really identifying that they really need to be able to implement something that they're going to make use of resources and investments that they've already created. So let's talk here for a second and look at the evolution very quickly. There's a lot of acronyms, alphabet soup, right, within the space. So when you have customers, really look at MDM. MDM, mobile device management, is really where I call this really phases. And you have customers that are going to be in different phases. There's going to be customers that just want to manage email, Wi-Fi, maybe provide some security profiles within a device. Maybe they're mobile centric, right? So that's when we talk about mobile device management. It was the ability to apply profiles in a remote management standpoint to devices. And this is really concentrating on the device. The next phase when we came to this was the applications became more predominant and important. Not only were they looking to manage the devices, but also identify where can we be more productive. So this stage I call the enterprise mobility management, or in some cases, the mobile app management, because a lot of mobile applications came through to connect those enterprise, either enterprise servers or enterprise applications directly to other applications where they're containerized, and the ability to access those applications were very limited. And that helped on the data loss prevention and other factors. And this also became a stage where we talked about virtualizing applications, taking those. I know that Jamie mentioned that their customer uses Horizon, which is a way of virtualizing their applications, legacy applications, to run on whatever platform they desire, or basically virtualizing the desktop completely, maybe providing a virtual Windows 10 desktop on hardware that they're not ready to refresh. In fact, it's another great factor. If you have customers that are looking to do hardware refreshes, this is actually a way for them to save money, especially in these hard times where they have to look at and allocate budget. Maybe they can use it as a thin client directly to use and be able to offer that type of secure connectivity to a newer platform, being able to keep productivity. So that phase was concentrated on the application. And then now where we are today is going to be kind of two parts. We have the unified endpoint management, which Nick had mentioned. It's an all-encompassing one single pane of glass to manage all your devices, as well as a digital workspace. So when we talk about the front end to the user, it's very important and very impactful for that end user to be able to have access to all their applications on any device that they choose, if they have a choice, or those devices that they currently are using, maybe their personal devices, that they get access on a personal device, BYOD. And so that is actually encapsulated in a digital workspace with single sign-on, any app, any device. I'm sure you've heard that before, but the reality of it is, how do you actually execute to be able to deliver a proper digital workspace to your end users is key. So those three steps, MDM, EMM, and UEM, again, I told you we're going to play alphabet soup, are really kind of three different phases your customers will be in, but let's look at the priorities for your customers. In the fact of digital transformation, and this is pre-pandemic, realistically, they looked at three different pillars, and digital transformation can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different organizations. When we look at the end user experience, or the point of the endpoint specifically, they're really looking to reduce costs, make sure if I'm going to have to manage these, how am I going to be able to reduce costs, increase productivity, and then really provide business innovation. As any IT organization, their main goal is really to drive business innovation and drive the bottom line. How can I be effective for my company to make sure that we're driving bottom line and be more valuable, right, to the street or my customers? So go ahead and fill in the first one. How do we actually answer to this? We reduce costs by unifying the administration of all their devices. We've had cases, very large organizations, or very small, we still find that they have multiple points of administration for multiple types of devices. I know Jamie had mentioned SCCM, for instance, the traditional SCCM, PCLM to be able to manage your PCs, your Windows 10, for instance, today. We do that. We are able to not only assist and help in transferring and migrating those workloads to a modern management approach, to also be able to manage the iOS, Android, Chromebook, MacBook, Apple TVs. And so when we really look at a unified endpoint management system, that's what's going to be able to drive the reduction in costs, is clearing all those different solutions into one, and also reducing that security mitigation. We talk about increased productivity, very simple. You increase user experience, you're going to increase productivity. If it's easy to connect, easy to go into something that you personally are today, you might have to enter in 20 different passwords. I know I have this problem. 20 passwords, all of them change at different times, and then accessing those applications, especially corporate applications, whether I have to connect via VPN or not, we have solutions that help that end-to-end access to those applications, whether it's a per-app VPN or others. And also, we blend. It doesn't matter which application you're looking to get into, it's context aware. And then the final step, if you can fill that in, it really has to do with the automation and analytics. For me, it's the end-to-end connectivity and mobile flow of how is it that I can take my business process and either mobilize it or create a modern approach to be able to access it anytime, anywhere. I'm not going to go into too much of the solution, but for instance, as you do your research and we talk about Workspace ONE, when I mention intelligence-driven workspace, not only are you going to have those analytics to help you drive automation and automatic remediation of situations or quarantining of devices that are not in good posture, but you also have the ability to build, allowing you also as agents to be able to drive app development or flow development in terms of within micro applications within email, for instance. Next slide.
Hey, Al, just want to point out for everyone, since we're touching on so many different concepts within one solution, because it can achieve so many different functions. If you have questions, for Al, for myself, for the AppSmart team, make sure you put it in the question and answer icon down at the bottom of the screen so that we can answer that before the end of the call. And then we're also going to give you a link to all of the VMware resources in the chat as well. Just want to point that out.
No, thank you, Nick. That's actually a great catch. And I do encourage you, please, as I go, there might be something that you wanted to ask about. Please put it immediately in the Q&A. We'll be able to cover those as soon as I finish through the demo. And I got to tell you, today is it's actually just the beginning. We have a couple of conversations today around the general how to position, but ultimately the solution can be as simple as you need it, and for your customers, as simple as whether it's a small, medium, or large enterprise, or as complex as they require it. So please remember that. So please put those questions in Q&A, and I'll be able to answer those at the end here. So let's talk about remote work solutions very quickly here. So when we look at remote workers or remote work solutions, really got to think about three things. We got to think about the user, we got to think about the apps, and we got to think about the endpoint. So let's take our user here, for instance. Go ahead and fill the next. And this user needs to get access to those corporate applications on the back end. Now, those applications might exist, maybe they're SaaS applications, or maybe they're on-premise, maybe they're services through Office 365, Google's G Suite. So realistically, that in itself is a challenge to be able to figure out if that user is really in compliance, who they are, whether they need access to, where they're accessing it from. Also, all that data and information is important. So we got the apps. Fill in the next, and then we got to look at the endpoint. That endpoint, it doesn't matter what endpoint it is. Windows 10, Chromebook, MacBook, my iOS tablet. You know, now actually I'm playing around recently with the mouse on my iPad. I have an iPad Pro. I can do my work on my iPad Pro, no problem. And I have a beautiful Logitech keyboard. I'm working great. But accessing that in a remote fashion is key and important. So go ahead and fill in the next. So what solution are we really offering? It really comes down to several parts here. And in the middle, you'll see Workspace ONE. And we talk about UEM. Remember I mentioned Unified Endpoint Management is the administrative console or the management software to be able to manage these devices. We have another module that's included in our Workspace ONE standard, for instance, our basic package that has Workspace ONE Access, which is an identity manager solution, access management solution that allows to connect other identity managers if you wish, whether it be Ping, Okta, Google, Microsoft, whomever, and allow you to be able to authenticate those users with federation, right? So Office 365 is a great use case. We offer the federation directly to access any and all Office 365 and directly with those APIs. And I'll show you in the live demo in a second what that looks like to an end user. And then without getting into in the weeds here, we can offer, when I say these third parties, from identity managers to other security solutions, Workspace ONE Intelligence is the part where we have the access to the endpoint, and therefore we are building what we like to call the trust network, which is there at the bottom. You'll see some familiar names like Checkpoint, Symantec, McAfee. So making use of those investments that your customers have already made is key. It's actually, we really believe Workspace ONE becomes foundational to be able to not only unlock and enable maybe that shelfware sitting there or something that they feel like, well, do I need to invest in this? Maybe I already have this today. Those are things that will probably come up in some of the qualifying questions or qualifying conversations. And that's key for us. And to understand that we are, as a VMware solution, able to work across the board with multiple types of solutions, especially in security. We invested in Carbon Black there on the left now. That's part of our Workspace ONE security solution for next generation antivirus, behavioral EDR, and audit and responses. So we are building out today, and Carbon Black is actually a separate unit or organization, but it plays key to our endpoint management strategy. Great. So what does this mean to you? Let's look at additional revenue streams. I've already talked a little bit about why is it a foundational product, enabling Office 365. Maybe you're offering other location type services, mobile threat protection, antivirus, or maybe you specialize in specific either application development or you look at hardware and solutions for those field services teams, maybe a bank with financial branches, and you are working through creating that entire solution for the customer. We really feel that as a foundational product, we enable that. And then from a program perspective, really simple subscription model on the VMware Cloud with high availability and disaster recovery. You have flexible consumption options such as monthly payments or prepaid. And prepaid, obviously, we have terms up to 12 to 5 years, depending on the organization. So for those that need to use a certain budget within a certain time and have that ability, that flexibility goes great. And then when I talk about lower cost of acquisition, it really starts driving the fact that you are able to sell, land, and expand, right? So being able to take a foundational product that is going to enable any other applications. Maybe they might have been on the fence on an enterprise solution or a CRM system, or just the sheer factor of how do I implement this and costs involved with it. This allows you to be able to drive not only savings on the customer side, but savings on your side to be able to drive a full set of solutions up front and being able to deliver that to manage that. And then obviously services. Can't go without saying the services that you are able to offer as a master agent, be able to do consulting, help desk, implementations, mobile application development. Those are things that we've talked about. So it really becomes that foundational product in this sense. Great. Now we get to the fun part. So if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and take over the screen. So let's go ahead and take a look at this as a end user first, because then I want to go behind the curtain here. So I today, as a VMware employee, want to show you what my experience is as a VMware employee and what it is that I use on a daily basis. So what I'm showing you is actually my Workspace ONE, my personal Workspace ONE that I access every single day. Now I'm accessing it through a Google Chrome browser. I'm going to show you also that there is a specific application I can download on my device, and I'll show you the experience and across my devices and or either browser and or application, how the experience is the same. So right here, I'm looking at my digital workspace, and the application and or site is called the Intelligent Hub. So the Intelligent Hub for us is multifaceted. Not only does it actually communicate back to our management console, but the Intelligent Hub can also be personalized and customized to be able to deliver other services. I'll go through that in just a second. So let's take a look at what kind of applications we have here. As an employee, I can go in here and check my 401k. I can make changes in seconds to my 401k, look at my health benefits. I can go in my Concur application and either set my next ticket to travel, which who knows when that will be now. going from 50% travel to 0. It's very weird. But accessing that, doing my expenses, if I need to order a new peripheral or device and have it shipped to my home, I can go in here and look at different business intelligence through SAP. I can go into Salesforce. I also skipped over Office 365 here. So I'm going to show you, for instance, I'm going to go ahead and live demo. I'm just going to show you what happens here. So immediately what it's taken me to is an identification or authentication. Who am I as a user? Where I'm accessing? What device am I using? Is the device enrolled? All that just happened immediately. That access to those applications can also, if in the case that I myself, the posture of my device is not congruent with the policies of the organization, I can actually limit and have that limited access and access management to those applications as needed, right? So that's an automated thing, or I can effectively do it manually. So I'm accessing, I access my account, here I am, I'm connected, I can keep doing my work and move forward. Let's go back to my Workspace ONE. I need to go hop over to Salesforce now and be able to show you, again, authentication, single sign-on, go into Salesforce, get into the CRM, make any effective changes and opportunities. Yes.
Quickly while we're there too, back on that Workspace ONE environment and the platform for you, I want to point out really quickly that look at the diverse array of applications that are published on this platform. That regardless of where the business is internally developing the application or from a third-party point of view, it's all published onto one single sign-on platform. So think of what a company can do, whether it's an on-prem application or not, to put this in front of an end user. It's extremely advantageous and so simple to use through all the concepts that Al's gone through. It's kind of funny to think that this is what it comes to for the end user. This is it. This is the full experience. So it's unbelievable.
No, thank you, Nick. And I think that's a key important point when I access my Workspace ONE, taking consideration that it actually is context aware. So as I'm showing you today a demo through my browser, if I were to show you my Workspace ONE and my experience on my iOS tablet, an Android device, or my iPhone, I'm able to show you that's exactly the same look and feel. In fact, I'm going to flip over, for instance, and look at this one, which is actually the Intelligent Hub application on my MacBook, right? So same look and feel. Here's where I have all my my different applications. I'm able to kind of showcase certain applications here, or I can add them by category. And then I'm going to just kind of go back, for instance, and go here. When I open an application, if it is a SaaS-based application, in fact, you'll see a lot of different websites. We use a lot of SaaS, obviously, SaaS applications. But there's also, for instance, an interesting one here. This is actually a Windows 10 desktop. So I can immediately, the situation that Jamie had mentioned, that they had used Horizon. So now they're able to enable in their Workspace ONE, enable Horizon to deliver a desktop. So when I open this, it'll be going through my Horizon client. And on my MacBook, I'll have access to a Windows 10 desktop. And why would that be important in some cases, whether it's a thin client that I'm using and or if I'm using my MacBook? We all know if you use a MacBook that not all the Microsoft applications are all the way up to snuff. You have sometimes, let's say, Microsoft Access. If I need to use certain applications that are only available within certain desktops, I have access to do that. And then just to keep moving on that, for instance, I can add, this is a great self-service portal, add different applications that I don't have today. I'm working from home. They tell me I have a new application available that I need to get connected to. I can quickly self-service and add it on as one of my favorites. And because I'm authenticating through a enrolled device, I'm immediately getting access to those devices without having to put in a ticket to my IT, and I can keep moving forward, right? So those applications, people, let's say from an onboarding perspective, I just started today and I want to reach out to one of my coworkers. I'm working remotely. I'm not going to the office, or I'm part of a global team. So these are team members that are all over in this case, the Americas, but let's say, for instance, a global team that I need to access and get a phone number to. I can quickly access the information where they sit, if they have an office, or their phone numbers and data information about them. And then another great thing is corporate communications. Today, I'm actually based out of Atlanta. So for instance, I have updates around the Atlanta site. What are some of the new procedures around entering the office if you are a necessity to be in the office? any information about new applications that are being delivered. In the case, and we've actually have some great videos around VMworld, and I suggest if anybody gets a chance to please register and access our virtual VMworld. We just opened that up. We will show and showcase what we use some of this for. For instance, in the case of emergency, we have a direct line to those devices that are pinging constantly, and being able to deliver across the entire corporate devices a message about either an alert, a concern, anything like that. We have that ability. In fact, take a chance to look at VMware Campus, where I believe it's already GA, but it's another option too, where we have, using beacons, the ability to see remotely. All these things will help you evolve. It can, like I said, it can be as complex as you would like it to be, but as basic as you require it to be, right? So then the last piece here is, and this is a customization here as well, but this is all open framework that you're able to help your customers really develop and additionally add more resources to. Here, for instance, I have my IT department. I can chat with them directly. I can see all my devices that are enrolled. I can go in and see if there's something's enrolled, if I need to re-enroll it, or if I need to push some type of profile that's maybe my email, maybe something happened, or I'm switching from one email box to another, things like that. I can do that directly here. So I showed you everything from in front of the curtain, if you will, from a user experience. Let's go back into, I'm going to open Salesforce, Office 65. So this is actually a demo version of the same exact platform. You can see I changed some of the colors, I changed the logos. There are more different options here, for instance. When I go behind the curtain, I start looking at a couple different modules. So that module that I just showed you, which is the Intelligent Hub, is included in our licensing. Then you go into our UEM platform, Unified Endpoint Management. This is our traditional management for any and all devices. You can see a quick and easy flow left to right, the ability to quickly access different sections of your corporate environment. The very first thing I see is that I have 2,281 devices enrolled. I can take a quick snapshot to know, okay, what type of devices, which ones, for instance, might be a security concern, which here, for instance, we have 788 of them not encrypted. I'll tell you, this is a demo environment that we use, a production demo environment, so we have a lot of in and out of devices. So you can see that this is probably a little bit higher than normal. I can see the different platforms. I have 2 Windows 7 desktops, and I have 821 Windows 10. I can identify those by operating system and/or versions directly. And I can also personalize this and customize this and look at different reports. I know that Jamie had mentioned, obviously, inventory. Something as simple as just inventory is key. And let me double click on that too, because on here, our solution is highly scalable. So what you'll be able to do, even if it's a small mom and pop shop to the largest enterprise, you'll be able to actually put this into different organizational groups and identify certain policies and profiles only applicable to certain groups. I can also manage the users, the administrators that have access into the device. So right now I'm the full device administrator for worldwide enterprises. But let's say, for instance, I'm just the help desk and I really only take a look at a certain subgroup of devices. What you saw change is obviously the access in the console, the number of devices that they see, so I can personalize the access. So for instance, we mentioned inventory. If you have an operations person that's going to be looking after this inventory or pulling reports, then I can give them just access personalized to them. So giving them access to the same environment, and also limit the activity on what they can do. They can't delete devices, they can't do profile creation, etc. So that's a great example of how scalable our solution can be. And then when we go back to full device administrator, for instance, let me give you a quick guide here. Here, for instance, we have all the different profiles that you're able to implement across the board. And you'll see, obviously, you can actually scroll over and see a bubble on what kind of payloads you can apply to them. So for instance, if I go to iOS, I quickly can go in, create a profile. Let's say, for instance, I want to take off the camera. And taking off the camera, because the user, when they come into the office, and I know that, for instance, I want to do it from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., I can assign a specific time period around the profile if I wish. Or I can assign it via geofences. So I can actually get a little more granular on how I'm able to provide that. And if you go here, for instance, on the left-hand side, we call these payloads, and you go to restrictions, you can see some of these restrictions right here. And then what you're going to notice is on the right-hand side, you have these bubbles that basically allow you to, what is the minimum version of the operating system and whether or not it requires supervision. So for instance, in iOS, the user has more power until the enterprise supervises the device, and that'll unlocks a lot more ability and options. Blocking the camera, FaceTime, I can remove Siri, I can allow or not allow, for instance, screen captures. I mean, there's a bevy of APIs that we use for all the different operating systems. But this is actually to the point that Jamie was making. It's a conversation with your customer, allowing yourself to figure out what are the challenges they're facing, what they want to do. In most cases, a lot of times they think, you know, what can I lock down and what can I secure? But really it becomes more of a, what can I make more productive and how can I make them, you know, my users and or employees be more productive to be able to do their job and or have access to do the things that they need to do. Do you have a question, Nick?
Yeah, I think I was going to point out that there's a lot of personal devices in the environment right now, you know, because organizations have pushed their workforces remote, and they've pushed a lot of company policies and or applications onto those personal devices. With everything that's going on in the market, you don't know what the kids are doing on that device. When the parent lets it go, you don't know what TikTok videos they're doing. What VMware really does is protect an organization's data, systems, and applications from any unforeseeable events that might occur in that type of an environment. I think it's just really important, especially now that we're all at home.
No, absolutely. Great point, Nick. And again, the use cases are very far and very wide as far as what you can use it for. That's why we really feel this is foundational to your customers, and you're able to actually position not only the solution to offer, you know, specific solutions to problems you have today, but for them to grow as a platform, for them to understand that at the end of the day, maybe I'm just focused on the mobile devices today, or I'm just focused on the laptops because that's my problem I have today. But ultimately, we like to grow with your customers, so this is key. And the personal devices is a really good use case. We have a lot of personal devices that today. There's even corporate emails and information go into personal devices that the company might not even know. They send out a name and password. Here's your username and password. You can obviously go in and say, oh, I just need to set up my Outlook on my personal device, and I now have I'm using my device that I wanted to. Well, those are things that you can control now. Those are things that you want to make sure that you have the ability to say, you know what, the device has to be enrolled to be able to get access to email so that I know and I can manage the access to that information. Great. And so going through here, obviously from a device standpoint, I can go and quickly see the information from the devices, from the environment. And then the last thing I'll show you, and we'll get to some Q&A, is the third component, which is the Workspace ONE access. So here, for instance, I have information on the users, what applications they're using, how many times a day they're opening the applications, which days they're opening the applications. So you could use this in multiple ways, but at the end of the day, this also lets you resource and figure out, is there problems with my applications, how they're accessing it, or maybe I need to add additional resources to make sure that the quality of service and access to those applications is good. I can even go as far as limiting access to certain applications where, you know, via certain ranges, right? So IP ranges. So these are the three components, and I want to, before we get to Q&A, I just wanted to make sure and mention some of the resources that you're going to get passed on. They're going to be very important. So one of the first ones I really, really like is our tech zone. So the website for techzone.vmware.com was built to really talk about what we talked about today. So if you kind of want to review and walk through what is Workspace ONE, what do we do, what's the authentication piece around single sign-on, and if you go down to the very bottom, there is a great video walkthrough. I think it's about 13 minutes, but it really does give perspective to kind of what we discussed today, and it walks through all the different components and the key selling points. And you can see some screenshots on here, maybe even some more technical information about the devices. So Nick, why don't we check out the Q&A and see if we can answer some questions.
Let's do that. Rock on to the Q&A. So we have some actually really good questions. Mike Olson had asked, does Workspace ONE allow an admin to reset an iOS device, smartphone or iPad, so that the new end user can take that same device and enter another Apple ID?
That's a great question. So first and foremost, the Apple ID is locked down by the manufacturer and also the carrier. So let's be very cognizant that you can only control the device if you've already had it on your network. So if you, for instance, in this case, I'm considering that it's an iOS device that was assigned to a user. They put in their Apple ID, but the device itself is supervised and you were managing it, then yes, you'd be able to, if you will, unlock that device. But you won't be able to unlock it with the same Apple ID. So it would have to be a supervised device to be able to do that. Let's just to make sure we're clear on that. So the Apple ID is an Apple lockdown. We wouldn't be able to communicate to it otherwise.
Yeah, and I think that's probably referencing, if I can speak on a little bit on behalf of Mike, is the wiping of devices within an organization with turnover. So the answer, great answer. Second question from Mike again. Are we allowed to take over an old AirWatch account and update it to a Workspace ONE account and grow it? I know that that's a great question in lieu of your acquisition. That may be something that's directed to me, but Al, if you want to take it, you can.
Very quickly, an existing AirWatch customer who wants to go to Workspace ONE, if you notice, when we talk about Workspace ONE UEM, that is actually AirWatch. That is the AirWatch module component. Everything about it was AirWatch. It's rebranded and obviously expanded on, but I believe that the question has really become, if you have a customer, can we move them over to the new product and expand from there? The question is going to be, it's going to be very specific to the customer, so it depends on how they deployed it. If they're on the AirWatch on the cloud, or if it's on premise, that's a key factor. If it's a cloud, the concern I would have is that when we sell licenses through AppSmart, it is actually a new environment. So we wouldn't be able to transfer an existing cloud environment into the new environment. So it would require an uninstall, or should I say a unenroll and re-enroll, and recreation of an environment. But everything, in that sense, we can do it. It's just up to you and the customer. So it's a great question. Please follow up with us and let us know, and we can maybe dive a little bit deeper depending on the customer situation.
Perfect. Thanks for the answer. So one more question. Is Workspace ONE accessed through the browser only? And can it be accessed through browsers other than Chrome, like Firefox or Safari?
Through the browser only, no. And through all browsers, yes. So the way I'm accessing it today is using Chrome. I can use Firefox, Safari, it doesn't matter. The application itself, the Workspace ONE Intelligent Hub, is on all operating systems. So I have an agent for Windows 10, MacBook, Chromebook, iOS, Android, Windows Phone. I can download it. So that Intelligent Hub and that access to those applications can be accessed anywhere. What the difference would be is, for instance, if I show this is Workspace ONE Intelligent Hub and I access an application, I'll just show you what happens. If I access it on my MacBook on here, or if I showed you on my device, as an administrator, you're able to actually give the option to go into either open a web-based browser, which is the simplest way, or open the native application. So that's when I was mentioning context aware. So let's say I open Office 365, what's going to happen here, because my default browser, it opened up another window, my default browser is Chrome, it opened up another window. So you can see that even though I'm using the application, it opened up the browser. If it's depending on the device. So it's context aware, it'll open up whatever you wish to have it open up.
Perfect.
Oh, and I'm going to stop there for a second. I forgot to share this. I should have shared it when I first started, but I just wanted to I saw this on another presentation, and I really wanted to just capture what Jamie was talking about. Pre-pandemic, digital transformation is years away. I don't see a company having to change anytime soon. And then there comes the wrecking ball, right? So you're seeing a very much an impact immediately, and also a legacy, or not legacy, I'm sorry, an impact moving forward even after we figure out what the new normal is. And so this is a great opportunity to help your customers really drive the digital transformation and really allocate to solutions that help doing this.
So really quickly, Al, can you limit streaming services with Netflix and or other streaming services on a device if it's a company deployed device?
So you can blacklist and whitelist applications to be able to either have them or not have them and access them. If it's a, excuse me, when you get down to actual data usage, there's a concern on how the data is used for either personal or business applications. And that really is something called bit counting that the carriers usually within their networks are going to have that ability or not. Our solution helps enable things like that. It's a very advanced use case, but at the end of the day, the best way to manage that is either to lock devices down to only certain applications or blacklist certain applications. And if you can't do that, then provide policies around it.
Perfect. Great answer. Thank you. Last one. And I can go ahead and take this over from Franklin. How does Workspace ONE price out? You have different tiered plans. You have per user, per device, and it's scaled from a minimum fee upward to an advanced tier. It depends on how they want to use the platform. The example that we went over today was an advanced tier with VMware, and we can go on a per user or a per device plan depending on the tier, but it is very competitive in price. We're very aware of the other competitors, and VMware is right in line, if not is a better offering. So keep that in mind. Lastly, I want to thank everybody for coming to the webinar today. Thank you for joining us. We had a good show out. We do have a survey at the end of the webinar in the chat. If you guys don't mind filling that out, that would be some great feedback for us. And if you have any additional questions, please reach out to me. We can help you answer them. Thank you again for joining the call. Thank you, Al, and thank you, team, for putting this together. And again, if anyone has any additional questions or you need some resources, reach out to myself or anyone at AppSmart, and we will take care of you.